Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I will explain you about what is persistent storage in Kubernetes. So for this demo, I'm going to use AKS cluster and Azure file storage as my storage account. First, you need to understand two types of storage: stateless and stateful. So we are going to see this one, but what is stateless? So whenever if you delete, let's say you have application app A, when this get deleted, the file associated to app A, let's say log file, static files, anything that you have will also get deleted. You will not have any persistent storage, permanent storage for whenever you delete your app A. But in stateful, even if you delete, your log files or your storage will be retained. That is what called persistence. That is what called stateful. Okay, now you know why we need persistent storage, just to retain your files, application files that stored in your file system. Okay, so what you basically need to do, you have to use external file system. Okay, so that external file system can be your Azure storage. So this external system will help you to keep your data, right? Even if you delete your application, your external file system will retain your data. That is why you need to keep your, so that way you are just in, you are like say, keeping your application functional and non-functional separate. Non-functional, the logs, static files, all that you can keep it in your file storage. Let's say today you are uploading some latest image. Tomorrow it might change to something else. If you want to change that image, instead of like changing in your code, you can simply come here and replace that image. So your application will render the new application. So yeah, it has multiple advantages. Here just you can imagine that you can easily replace the file without even restarting the application. And anything that you like a log file or anything that application get created, if you wanted to see it in the archive, if you want to archive those information, see it later, then your persistent storage is going to help you. So how to achieve it, right? So that is very important, like how to achieve. So here I capture the different concept here, persistent volume claims, and this is like number one. This is like your starting point, right? So here in your YAML file, you will be having something called mount path. So which basically you're telling which file in the application that I need to mount in the external. Okay, let me show you that one particular sample. So if you look at here I'm saying that anything under HTML files, I wanted to store it in the Azure file storage. That is one. And then second thing is that you will tell what is your persistent volume claims. This is the order. It will call this, and persistent call volume claims will call this persistent volume, and persistent volume call your storage class, and storage class will call your file storage. This is the order of sequence 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, so here your mount path, you will tell what file system am I going to store it in. Okay, let's keep it in a different color. Let's keep it 1. Okay, so with that, what the reference you have here is captured. Okay, let me put a line. So this, so you'll be defining what is your persistent volume claim. Let me go back here. So under volume section, you're saying that what is your persistent volume claims. My claim name is PVC-parts. If you go to your persistent volume claims, you have some different set of information. So for basically, like, that is how your persistent volume knows which persistent volume claims to call. So, but this persistent volume claims will have the information like capacity, access mode, like access mode, nothing but your read write many, read write once, something. There are like multiple access modes are there. Which one you wanted to use for this particular persistent volume claims, you can define it over here. So let me go back to your persistent volume claim. So here, this is what I'm talking about. In your persistent volume claim, you'll be having the access modes, and you're defining your capacity, how much your application needs. You're saying that you need 1 gig of storage that your application require for you to store your file system, like your log files or anything. And then you are also having the reference, what is your persistent volume. So basically, like, your persistent volume has to call your persistent volume, right? So these two information is what you'll be having. Persistent volume name, this reference will go back here. Okay, now you need to know what persistent volume contains, right? I'll quickly show you the persistent volume file. So persistent volume file also exactly contains the information like persistent volume claims, but it is slightly actually this is a one file. Most of the information like access mode and all that will be the same like persistent volume claim, but this is a place where you define your file storage. What file share name are you going to use? For example, if you go back to this, right, under AKS storage account, I'm having something called state share. That is what I'm defining it here. So going back to my white pad, so you basically tell what is your secret name. I will quickly say what is that. Secret name and share name, and also it has the access modes, and then it also have the reference to storage class. Okay, when I talk about the secret name, you basically need to create the secret. For the secret, you have something called, let me show you, here is the thing. You basically need to find what is your storage account name and what is your key. So I'm going to anyway delete this, but I will show you where you need to get that information. You have to tell what is your storage account, and coming back here under access keys, you will have something. If you click show, that value you have to copy, and that one you have to pass it in your command, something like this. Azure storage account from literal and Azure account storage. This is the same thing what you have here. Whatever I just copy here and I replaced here. Okay, anyway, I will going to delete that, but I just wanted to show you where I get that information. Okay, so now going back to my whiteboard, that is how your persistent volume will have this information: your secret name, your share name, access mode, access key, and access mode 2, and then storage class information. So in this storage class, once you have the reference to storage class, here you will have the provisioner name. Okay, so when I say provisioner, it can be your S3. If you want to use AWS 3 storage, you can even use that. Since here I'm using AKS storage account. In AKS storage account itself, you have multiple like blob container, and then file share, and then you have the managed disk. Okay, so but for my example, I'm using the file share. So all that information will be defined in your storage class. Let me show you the storage class. The storage class also contains, so this is what I'm talking about, the provisioner. What provisioner are you going to use? I'm going to use Azure File Share, and then I'm going to use what is the SKU name, standard LRS. You basically need to get all this information, and the reclaim policy as something like you are going to repurpose it as soon as it's going to burn. Okay, so yeah, just if you go and find the Kubernetes document, you'll be having the details of what and each parameters all it. So there are something called retain, you can have delete, so many policies will be there. But in this my objective in this video is to show you on how to use Azure file storage as your stateful in making your application as stateful thing. Okay, going back, that is what your storage. Finally, the file storage. This is the one where I create in your Azure portal. Okay, Azure portal. Go there and first you create storage account, and then create the file share. Okay, and file share, if you want to upload anything, you can upload the files, but in my case my application is going to upload. Okay, because this the mount path under HTML will be uploaded here. Okay, so if in case we have any static files, pictures or anything, if you want to replace, whenever you replace, that will also get whenever you have the pictures, if you want to replace, you can update here. When application runs, it will take the updated pictures. So let me take you back to the actual demo. Okay, so before even showing the demo on stateful, let me show you the problem what we have with stateless. So I already have the pod YAML file which I'm going to run, kubectl. Okay, so kubectl get svc. kubectl port forward svc slash stateless 8080 colon 80. Basically I just gave this command to see what port it is listening. I'm port forwarding to 8080. So now I'm going to hit this in the URL. So let me hit that localhost log/log.html. If you see here, my timestamp, let me zoom it. My timestamp starts at 3:49:09. What I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this. My expectation is to keep my old log, whichever that starts 3:45. The moment I delete and recreate, let me stop this one. The moment I delete this pod and recreate this pod-deployment, whatever that I have, that will get, I will not even see the older log. kubectl apply hyphen here. Let me do a port forward. Okay, let me open in the new tab. You see, it starts from 347. All my older 345 is gone. So if I want to archive this log with the stateless, it's not possible. That is why we need to use stateful. If you wanted to see the older information like your log, or if any other application wanted to use this application information, the output of this application that generates, if some other application wanted to access this, then you need to keep this information in a separate storage. Okay, let me show you how to overcome this issue using the stateful. Okay, let me show you about my file storage. Okay, so going back to my file storage, I do have a file storage name, a storage account as AKS STG1, and my file share name is state share. Okay, if you go here browse, here you can see all the information. Right now I don't have any information. Let me delete whatever it is. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to retain my data inside the file storage, and when I access something like this, where I'm going to see the older information. So this is like one I was explaining a few minutes back, where in your stateless, you cannot see your older information. Let me close this. Okay, so you have to create in the same order what I mentioned here. You have to have your file storage. In your file storage, you have to create your storage account. You have to create the file share. And here I'm going to take a couple of information from your storage account in order to create the credential. So going back to your storage, take your, so if you want to give some level of access, go to your configuration. And since it's for the local and the internal purpose, I use I just enable these three things, but in a real time, this is not the recommended one. And also if you go back to your access key, this information is what you need to use in order for you to connect from your AKS cluster to your file share. Okay, just copy this, and I'm going to create a Kubernetes secret, right? So that is something what you need to do as a first thing. Let me take this. Okay, I'm simply going to, I already have the command. I'll give this command in my description. kubectl get secret. Just making sure, yeah, it is get created. So now exactly we are going to do it in the reverse way. Okay, so now we have the file storage already created. To make your file storage credential to accessible, I create the secret. Now I need to go and create the storage class. kubectl apply -f storage class. Okay, let me go back when it is getting created. I'm going to show what is there in the one more time. Here I'm saying that my provisioner is Azure file, and this is the SKU. If you look at if I go to my portal and see what is the SKU of this the Azure file share, is going to be a standard LRS, and reclaim policy is retained, and volume binding mode is immediate. So as soon as I create the persistent volume and volume claim, it will bound right away, even without even deploying the pod. It will go to the bound state immediately. Okay, let me go back to my PowerShell. Your kubectl get SC. So basically, you create your storage storage class, which is with the name called Azure File-SC. You see here, right? This is what we created. But if you look at here, by default, your Azure AKS, since I'm using AKS, it's already supporting some of the provisioner called Azure File CSA Premium. Some of the stuff which is already is where it is by default, it is using it, like your managed disk and everything. If you wanted to use your AWS S3, then you need to know what is that provisioner. That provisioner is what you need to update. This one will be changing based on the provisioner that you are using it in your application. Okay, so now going back here, my storage class is completed. Now I'm going to create the persistent volume. kubectl apply -f persistent. So when this is getting created, I'm going to show you what is there in the pv.yaml. So in the pv.yaml persistent volume, my kind is persistent volume, and this is my persistent volume name. I'm telling what is my capacity, because my default, mine is like 1 terabyte of storage capacity. In that, I'm going to only use 1 gig for my application, and my access mode is read-write many. Okay, so that means multiple parallel execution is allowed, and my storage class name is going to be the one what I created in the previous file. That is why I'm keeping like storage class name, and this is a secret name which I need to give. So here is the one. This is how you, by running the persistent volume, you are basically connecting your AKS cluster with your file share. Okay, so you are telling about what is your secret name. The secret name is what I created some time back. Azure storage secret is what we are referencing it out here, and what is your share name, state share, I'm giving it here. So let me go back. Yeah, this is get created. Now kubectl, okay, get pv. One thing I'd like to show you now. Let me keep the file open this one. If you see here, the claim status is not bounded. Once you create the persistent volume claim, it has to be bound. If it is not bounded, that means there is something your persistent volume doesn't know what is your persistent volume claim. So that is very important to make. Only when the claim is bounded, that means your persistent volume and persistent volume claims are interconnected. Otherwise, you have to be very careful. We have to watchful on this. Okay, now going, let me go. Okay, let me execute the persistent. Okay, now if we go and see get pv, pvc, you can see it's bound now. Previously, the claim, the status is available. Sorry, I was saying status is available. Now status became bound, and claim it says it's changed from empty, it became to PVC parts. Okay, that means which is good. Now going, okay, let me quickly show you what is there in the persistent volume. So if you look at here, persistent volume claim, sorry. Here you are saying that what is your persistent volume name. So this is when you copy this, if you go to your persistent volume, this is what I told earlier, right? How your persistent volume claims knows your persistent volume. Everything will be referenced in the YAML file. Okay, now the final thing of this demo is, let me clear the screen. kubectl apply -f. Let me, when this is executing, I'll show you what is there in that pod 8 deployment stateful. So I'm mounting this everything under the HTML folder. I'm going to mount under my file storage. Okay, if you look at now, if you go to your file share, once the application start running, you will see everything under the HTML directory, that all that stuff you will see here. See the log.html. It's previously it was empty. As soon as like I start running this pod deployment stateful, this is get created. So I'm going to call this log.html from the browser. Okay, let me show you. kubectl get svc. kubectl port $80. It can be any port, but this 80 is very important. Okay, now going back to the browser. Okay, so right now you see that just watch this one. I'm going to delete this one and rerun it. kubectl delete -f pod. My intent here is once I delete, I will open in a new tab. You will be seeing the older one, but in the stateless, it starts with the timestamp when the new pod get created, right? So that is what I'm trying to show here. kubectl because all your information, the previous this information would have already stored in your file share. That's why we are going to just retrieve that information from the file share. So I'm going to open a new tab. See, yeah, whatever the old times on 359, even in the new one, it also has the older log and also the new log. So that's why your stateful will be very useful in a real-time situation where you can archive your old log for any future information. If you want to see what was a log, if you wanted to refer, you need to keep your application as stateful. I hope you like this video. If you like it, please subscribe it and like the video. Thank you so much. Bye.